Yo, what is going on, guys? XpertFusion here, and today I would like to give you guys a full review for Die Maschine, the first map in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War Zombies. Now, I've gotten a decent amount of play time out of this map. I'd say roughly 14 or 16, maybe 16 hours at this point, a decent amount. I have ran through the Easter egg a total of 3 times, so I've definitely put in a ton of hours into different parts of the quest itself. And I've also gotten all the wonder weapon upgrades. I've done a couple of the side quests. Overall, I've experienced a decent amount of the map. Now, of course, there could be more found on the map in the next coming days, but I'm not expecting anything too big. Maybe another side quest or two, but I'm not expecting them to find like a whole nother hardcore Easter egg. Now, if they do, well, I'll make another video, but chances are they're not going to. Chances are we've seen most of what there is to see on this map, and I wanted to give you guys a full review on it. Now, this is just in regards to the map, not the mechanics, not the game, not the things that'll probably carry over from map to map, like for example, the score streaks, the overall progression system, the weapon rarities, the mini-map, all these different features that I don't think are specific to this map, and I do think will transfer over to multiple maps. I'm not really going to focus on that today, just the map-specific things, because as you guys know, I really dig Cold War Zombies and how the mechanics are. I think they're some of the coolest mechanics we've ever had in COD Zombies. I'm really enjoying it because of that. But the map itself, I'll be honest with you guys straight up, I think it's a little bland. It's a little bland. It's not incredibly bland though. There's some great stuff to it, and we're going to talk about it here in this video. So of course, I'm going to go through a bunch of different categories, and we're going to kind of just talk about these categories specifically. Basically just all the things that make up a zombies map. And I'm going to start off with map layout. So map layout is pretty important. I'd say this is just how the map is generally sort of designed, the different routes you can go, transportation methods to get around the map. The map itself is pretty small, but it still has a really solid design to it. It's pretty symmetrical for the most part. You have the upper areas, of course, which to me, the upper areas are kind of boring. They just feel a little too bland for my liking. Like, it's just a snowy forest. I don't know. I feel like they could have done something a little bit cooler with the outer areas, but at the same time, they're trying to keep it a little more gritty, a little more realistic, so I can see what they're, trying to do. I think the whole little knocked area is pretty cool, how that's like the kind of, not really the center hub of the map, I would say, but it's definitely more centered in the upper areas. And then there's ways to get to the bunker. There's 2 different ways, one by spawn and one on the other side of the map, and they all kind of connect to each other. It's very similar to Alpha Omega in that way, how you get the upper areas and the bunker below, and they kind of all connect around. And you can use the ether tunnels around the map and go down straight to the lower areas just from those ether tunnels to make it a little bit quicker. It is relatively easy to learn, so that is good for the casual player, but I do feel like the map is a bit too small for my liking. I'd consider it feels like it's one of the smaller maps we've seen out of most Treyarch maps in the past couple years. I think maybe adding like 2 or 3 more areas would make it a little bit more enjoyable in my opinion, because how it is now, there's like, I guess 3 main areas at the above ground. You have the pond, you have the plane wreckage, and you have the spawn room, and then you got the Noct is the main hub area, so that's like the 3 outside areas, and then Noct's the main hub. That in itself, it's not that huge. Then you got the speed cola room, the dead shot room, right? And then you got the main power room, and then that little tiny room that kind of connects to spawn and the power room, and that's it. That's all, the whole map practically. So I do feel like if we had maybe just a couple more rooms, 1 or 2 more areas, obviously make them important. Don't just add them in as filler areas, but maybe just have another area connecting somewhere else or whatever, just to make it have a little bit more flavor to it. I think I would appreciate the map size a little bit more. With how it is, it's not terrible. It's just a little bit too, it's a little too small for me. When it comes to the atmosphere of the map itself, like I said before, I do think some of the areas are a little bland, but in terms of like how the boss zombies and some of the wonder weapons complement how the map looks, I think it actually makes for a pretty solid zombies atmosphere. And of course, the music plays a big part in that. Although I like the music in this map for the most part, some of the music is a little forgettable compared to other zombies maps. Like, it's not bad or anything. I don't think any map has had a bad soundtrack or anything, but compared to like the Black Ops 3 maps and the Black Ops 4 maps, they had such, you know, unique and interesting like soundtracks. And I think the reason why they were so much like more interesting is because they had a specific theme to the map that kind of made the music connect to it more, kind of like Ancient Evil had that, you know, Greece, like Roman, you know, mythology theme or whatever. And then you had Voyage of Despair had like its own like little kind of depressing theme to it. You know, you go back to like Black Ops 3, you had Shadows of Evil, had that like city sort of lights theme. You had all these different themes, but I feel like this map doesn't really have a theme to it. It's just kind of like, oh, it's Nocturne Toten in the 80s, and we got some, you know, creepy stuff going on down below. So you'd think they would go a little bit harder with the creepy soundtracks, but they really didn't. It's more like, I mean, some of the soundtracks are just stripped straight from the Black Ops Cold War's campaign, actually. Some of them are unique, though. Of course, Kevin Sherwood's Easter egg song alone is incredible, I gotta say. But when it comes to like just the background music, I think the boss fight music's pretty solid, but the rest of it's just not, I'm not crazy about it. But of course, it'll have to stand the test of time. Maybe in a couple months, I'll really appreciate it later on. But right now, currently, I don't think it really gives the map a unique feel to it just yet. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out once we start getting other maps. It could change, definitely could change. But of course, the Dark Ether is actually really damn cool. I really enjoy going into Dark Ether and just looking around the map. Unfortunately, on the Xbox One, I have the Xbox One S, it doesn't run very well in the Dark Ether. It's really, really laggy when you go into the Dark Ether. I assume on next-gen consoles it's probably pretty smooth, but for me, it's usually really bad when you're in the Dark Ether. It's hard to see. But I do love the landscape. I do love looking around, and I love how there's a lot of different Easter egg quests that are specific to the Dark Ether. I think it would have been a little bit cooler if they maybe tried to implement more Easter eggs that are specifically only in there, and also maybe some more boss zombies that are only in there, because they have that one reskinned boss that's just another one of the megatons, and he just has a different name and he's a little bit more red. He's not that different though, so I kind of wish they had something cooler than that, maybe as a boss zombie, maybe something from a previous map that we've seen before, because the Dark Ether is where all the evil banished to, so I feel like it would make sense for some stuff from the old storyline to maybe return in some way, shape, or form in the Dark Ether. Like, imagine, I'm not saying they needed to do something like this, but have maybe a way to obtain the Wonderwaff, you know, an OG weapon or something like that, just to add more to the map, and it's from the Dark Ether because it's from the original storyline. So that's how you connect the Dark Ether and then connect the OG storyline to the new storyline. I think that would have been kind of cool. Now, when it comes to the setup process for this map, I actually find the setup process to be a little bit repetitive, which is really weird because usually on previous Zombies maps, I usually like the setup process more than I like the later rounds. But in this game, it almost feels like the opposite. I really don't enjoy the setup, and I actually really enjoy once you have everything you need, and you're just kind of killing zombies, doing Easter eggs, getting your weapons upgraded and such, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, how the later rounds go. But in the early rounds, it does feel very linear. You're doing basically the same thing every time, which is pretty similar for most Zombies maps. Sometimes there's maps where you have multiple choices with how you're going to set up. This map, it kind of feels like it's the same every time I play, which is a little unfortunate, but not completely the same. Obviously, I might change up my route that I go to get to power depending on where the box is. Sometimes I'll change that, but for the most part, I usually just go the same route, especially if I'm doing the Easter egg. It's pretty much a linear pathing every single time. I do like how it's pretty casual to turn on power and to get Pack-a-Punch, because those are two features that I don't think players should ever need a guide to try to do. And I do like how they specifically tell you how to do it. Now, when it comes to like Easter egg quests beyond that, I don't think they should ever hold their hands for those type of quests. But for stuff like this, I do appreciate it, because I know there's a lot of players out there who do not want to look up YouTube guides and just want to be able to find it all out on their own. And I do think it's nice that they kind of help you out on this map. But I do think maybe not help you out as much as it does. Maybe just give hints or something, because they literally told you straight up exactly what to do and where to go to get the Pack-a-Punch unlocked, which I makes sense. You know, you don't want players to be left out if the players who don't really understand it nearly as much. So I do get that a little bit. I'm okay with it. I think it's fine, right? Now, when it comes to everything else, there's a lot to do in this map, and I really, really like that. That's why I think high rounds is actually kind of fun. You have the different things you can upgrade, such as your weapon, which you can upgrade 3 tiers. Now, what I really like is that to get 3 tiers on your weapon, it takes a lot of points. You're not going to get this quick. Now, you don't really need it. It's not necessary to get 3 upgrades because 1 upgrade is usually pretty solid for your weapon. It usually does a lot more damage when you upgrade it once, but then upgrading a second time is even more score, or I guess you call it essence in this game. It's not points, it's essence. It's a lot more expensive. It's 15,000 instead of just being 5,000 for the first Pack-a-Punch, and then the third one is 30,000. So it's an incredibly hard process to get enough points in order to Pack-a-Punch 3 times for one single weapon. But I like that because now you're always working towards something. You're not always having everything you need. Then there's 6 perks, which of course, thank God, there's no perk limit, so you can just get all 6 perks that you would like to get. You can get your armor upgraded all the way to tier 3. You can upgrade your weapons rare from whatever it is all the way up to legendary, and then of course you can also get score streaks and different equipment and such, which just adds such an immense layer of customization and replay value to this map because you have all these different things to work for. So yeah, we gotta talk about these boss zombies. So I'll be honest, they're not the worst boss zombies you've ever had, not even close, but they're also not the best. I think they do add a layer of difficulty to the mode because, let's be real here, 90% of your deaths are usually caused from the Megaton, who is the big hazmat suit zombie. He's always your cause of death, like most of the time, because he does this insanely hard lethal blast, which is a projectile, so he can get you at a distance. And because there's no shield in this game, like no back protection shield like we've had in previous zombies games, you're not going to have your back protected, especially if you're running away from him. So even if you're running away from him, he can just snipe you when you're like on 50 HP and you're just dead, you're gone. If you run around a corner and he's right there, smacks you and you're like maybe 150 HP or something, he does a lot of damage with a smack. So essentially he's a really powerful boss, and I'm completely okay with that, but I do feel like they might be a little too powerful. I think their spawn rate is okay, but not on co-op, because co-op gets a little bit frustrating, especially when you get into the higher rounds. They just start spawning in like millions of these, man. It's just insane. Thankfully, the ray gun and the wonder weapons take them out pretty easily, but if you're trying to have some fun and just using weapons that aren't the wonder weapons, you're gonna have some trouble. And I feel like I like that they're adding a layer of difficulty because the map itself is really easy otherwise. But at the same time, I feel like they should have made maybe the zombies more difficult, but then also made it so the bosses aren't as difficult as they are, just a little bit, tiny bit. The Plague Hounds, on the other hand, are actually pretty cool. I don't really, get annoyed by the Nova gas that they leave behind after you kill them. It got a little bit annoying the first time I played, but then I got used to it and I just said, you know what, it's a feature that the map has, and it's really something you can kind of easily just go around. You just shoot them away from you unless you're cornered, but otherwise you just don't corner yourself and then you're pretty much set. And I would say the split, I don't know what they're called, but the split like boomer thingies, I think they might be called boomers, I don't really remember the name of them, but they're the Megatons. After you kill one, they split off into the 2 separate versions of the Megaton, and they're probably the more deadly ones because there's 2 of them, and they do similar attacks as what the Megaton does, but it's just a little bit, less. But it's still a massive attack, and these guys can be almost just as bad as the Megaton. Honestly, in my opinion, most time they're worse than the Megaton, but they are a little weaker, so if you have a wonder weapon or a ray gun, you're gonna take them out pretty damn easily, and honestly, they're not that hard of a boss. And then you have the other variation of the Megaton, who is only in the Dark Ether, and he's not that different. I think he has just a tiny bit more health than what the Megaton has, and he's only in the Dark Ether. And lastly, there's the heavy zombie, which is literally just a zombie that has a little bit more health. You really rarely notice these guys because they kind of just blend in with the other zombies. It just feels like a zombie that has like just a little tiny bit more health. I was expecting like a Brutus style zombie, but no, he's just got a little bit more health. And especially in the boss fight, you're gonna notice a lot of them. They come usually in the later rounds. They're not really gonna be in the first 20 rounds or so too much. So they're not that hard to take out. I don't really have a problem with them. I think they look kind of cool, and they just add a little bit of difficulty if you're, shooting up a horde and you're cornered by a couple of these. They're going to be a little bit harder to kill compared to the other zombies, so I do like those bosses a little bit. Next, we're going to talk about the wonder weapons, the Die Shock Wave. Of course, you can also upgrade it with 4 different variants, and I'd say the upgrade process for each of these 4 variants are all pretty simple. I don't like how 2 of them force you to do like a little bit of the Easter egg first to actually obtain them. I'd prefer them all just be unlockable even without doing that. And I think it's a little bit weird that it makes you do the first couple steps of the Easter egg just to get them, but it is what it is. The upgrades themselves, like I said, they're easy to get, so they're pretty simple for most casual players, and they're implanted in my memory just from watching one guide. Without a guide, would it be possible? Yes, but it would probably take you a little bit more time, and you probably have to do a little bit more of, just looking around the map and just guessing and stuff like that, because the steps themselves aren't like 100% obvious to everyone's mind. But if you're a decent Easter egg player and you're a decent Easter egg hunter, you could probably find these out without a guide. They're not too difficult. The upgrades themselves are pretty great, except for a few of them. So the electric upgrade is easily the best one out of all of them. Well, a lot of people would argue that the original Shockwave is actually the best, especially for high rounds, which that is true. But when it comes to just generally killing zombies, the electric upgrade is insanely good. It's just like the electric upgrade to the Ray Gun Mark IIs in Alpha Omega. This map has a lot of similarities to Alpha Omega, I've noticed, and this upgrade is so great. I use it all the time in the boss fight. You basically just hold down the trigger and you get a lot of free ammo from not only sucking the zombies up, but also just picking it up from the ground. So you're basically never going to run out of ammo with this thing, which is pretty damn awesome. And then there's the Nova 6 upgrade, which shoots basically just Nova 6, and it's kind of like the Venom X or the Venom Y from Infinite Warfare. It's not too bad, but it's also not the best at killing them really quickly if you need to kill them as soon as humanly possible. The ice upgrade is just like the other one, the electric upgrade, but it's just a little bit weaker, and instead of killing them directly, it kind of just freezes them, which can kind of cause some problems sometimes, so I wouldn't recommend the ice upgrade too many times. But the ice and the Nova 6 are the easiest ones to get. And then lastly, there's the fireball upgrade, which is one that I've not used too much, so I don't have a solid opinion on it. But from what I've used, it's powerful. It's just not going to save you in corners all that well because it takes a while to shoot. But when it comes to taking out trains, it actually does a pretty good job at it, and especially good for taking out the Megatons. So I like these upgrades. I think these are pretty unique wonder weapons. I'm surprised they're still able to create unique wonder weapons after all these years of wonder weapons. Hopefully we can get some even cooler ones down the line, but these ones are pretty awesome, and I'm pretty, happy with them. And then of course the ray gun is the best ray gun we've ever had. That's not really a, thing about Die Machine specifically, because the ray gun will presumably be on every single map going forward, but it is insanely powerful, and I'm really happy they finally made the ray gun great again. Thank the Lord. So finally, we're going to be talking about the Easter egg, the main Easter egg quest, as well as story. I'm going to kind of combine the story with the Easter egg quest itself because they kind of go hand in hand. Now, when it comes to the story itself, so far it's not that intriguing, especially with not having an ending cutscene for the Easter egg. It doesn't feel like the story is going to a specific place. I was very interested in what this story was going to be about, especially after seeing Samantha Maxis returning, but the map itself hasn't really given me too much to be interested in. I do like how the other characters kind of speak to you while you're playing, like you got Weaver speaking to you every now and then, you got a couple other people. That is cool, but the fact that we don't have a main crew to the map, I think is the biggest flaw to the story currently. It takes a lot of personality away from the map. Now, I do like being able to use our operators in the map. I think that's a great feature, but why not have a crew, a main crew that is the default characters you play as, and they're the main crux of the story itself, but let us have an option of just being like, yeah, let's go use our operators instead. You know what I mean? I love having the operators because that makes those multiplayer operators that I earn through challenges or through the battle pass, which we'll see eventually, it makes that more worth it for me, so I can use them in zombies instead of just in multiplayer. So I do like that, but having a main crew I think would help out a lot, especially for story's sake, because it would actually make us care a little bit more about what's going on. And this is one of the only maps we've actually ever had that doesn't have a specific crew to it, which is really just weird. But like I said, it's not a big problem to me because I do care a lot more about how the gameplay is compared to the story, but still having good story and good solid characters would still help a lot more. And when it comes to the Easter egg quest itself, this is of course the main quest, I'm a little disappointed with it. Now, it's not a bad quest by any means, it's actually pretty fun to do, especially over and over again. I think it's going to be a really fun Easter egg to speedrun. But to me, I'm a little disappointed because it is very, very simple. I mean, there's barely any steps to it. So the whole Easter egg practically goes as upgrading all 4 variants of the Wonder Weapon, which at first sounded like way too much, especially for solo, but the Wonder Weapon upgrades are really easy like I mentioned before, therefore you get them pretty quickly. Then you have to go through a bunch of different anomalies around the map, and you kind of have to listen to these ghosts from World War II talking to you, kind of giving you this story information about what was going on back when they were searching the lab back in World War II, and I do think it's a pretty cool little part of the Easter egg, but you can skip through it, which I'm thankful for. You know, you can kind of just run through them, you don't have to listen to all of them every single time, but the first time I did it, it was fun listening to the story quotes and kind of learning a little bit more about what was going on in the story, but it's not very interactive, I guess you can say, because it's more of let's just learn about the story rather than let's actually do some fun, crazy things. The Easter egg itself doesn't have a lot of moments like that where everyone in the team is involved in doing crazy fun things. This is a very simple Easter egg to do on your own, even with a squad of players with you. They don't really need to do much, which I think is a little unfortunate. It's kind of just going around the map, holding X on things, and then you get to the boss fight, which the boss fight, very underwhelming for a boss fight. Not that it's a terrible, boss arena thing itself, because it's actually kind of fun. It's just there's no boss. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Tog der Toten, where you had to kind of follow this little orb around the map and get kills with it. Now this is a little different. You're not following a thing around the map, but you're just staying in this one area protecting this guy named Orlov, whatever the hell his name is, and he's basically this humanized version of the Megaton who breaks free, and you learn a little bit more about the story with him there as well, which is pretty cool. And you have to protect him on 3 different stages, and you just protect him against other zombies, other Megatons, and just other boss zombies on the map as well. It's just a bunch of bosses, but there's no one specific boss, just like what we had in previous zombies experiences. So I was a little disappointed with that. I think it would have been a lot more enjoyable if it was actually a boss itself. And then once you finish the boss fight, you have to run through to the outdoors to exfil on the chopper, which I thought was a pretty good way to end it off. And it gets really intense there as well, but I just throw monkey bombs usually, and you're pretty much good to go. It shouldn't be too difficult, especially if you have the electric die shockwave variant. You're probably going to be okay. But I compare this to, let's say, some other launch maps in the past, because I do think it's good that it's a casual Easter egg. I'm not annoyed that it's pretty simple to do, because honestly, that's how it should be for the first map on the game, because they're trying to, lure in players who maybe aren't that interested in zombies usually. They don't want to make it some really difficult, like, Revelation style complexity of an Easter egg. They want it to be relatively simple for all players, and I'm fine with that. But I feel like they should have either had a hardcore quest on top of it, or they should have just made the quest itself a little bit more interactive and a little bit more fun to do, because I do feel like the only enjoyable part of it is the boss fight itself, which I still am a little bit disappointed in, of course. So comparing it to previous maps Easter eggs, let's start with Black Ops 3. So Black Ops 3 had Shadows of Evil, which was definitely a not overly complex Easter egg, but for any average player, they're probably not going to figure it out on their own. But that game had the Giant on top of it, so they had that casual map alongside a more complex map, so it kind of worked out a little bit. Infinite Warfare had Spaceland, which had a very casual Easter egg, very, very casual, very, very simple, but the steps were pretty fun because they were interactive. You were doing things, you were killing zombies, you weren't just upgrading wonder weapons and going around the map and holding X on different anomalies while listening to story quotes. World War II had a casual Easter egg, which again was very, very simple, and a hardcore Easter egg, which kind of pushed that Easter egg a little bit further, made it a little bit more difficult, and gave you different rewards than what the casual thing did. And then we go to Black Ops 4, which had a couple different maps. They had obviously a more casual map like Classified, while also having really complex maps like Blood of the Dead and Voyage, while 9 was more in between. It was an easy map. The Easter egg itself isn't like casual by any means, but it's also not too impossible to do for the average player as long as they learn it through YouTube. Most people are not able to figure out 9's Easter egg without looking up a guide or being helped out by people who know it or something. So that is what it is. But they have good differentiations between the maps. This game only has this one map. I'm not really counting Dead Ops Arcade as a map. So when you only have this one map, you have to make it like the Final Reich or Spaceland, where the Easter egg is either got 2 different quests to it, where there's one that's casual and one that's hardcore, or make it just like Spaceland where it's casual, right? But it's going to have a lot of elements to it that kind of make it more interactive and therefore more replayable. There's some other fun little side quests on this map as well, like if you shoot these 5 orbs around the map, you actually get to turn on this little dance party disco Easter egg, which has the coffin meme playing through, which I think is relatively funny. You get free jug from it, as well as a free upgraded weapon. Or not upgraded, but it's like, you know, it's usually a decent weapon. It's usually like legendary rarity. Sometimes it's epics. If you're really unlucky, you'll get like a rare one, but usually they're, you know, much better in the rarities. They're not pack-a-punch though. So, but they're still pretty cool to get. You can actually get the ray gun or the die shockwave from it as well, which is really awesome. The ray gun's really rare, so it's cool to get it when you do get it. And there's other side quests like getting a free, you know, score streak, and that's pretty much it. There's not too many different things to do on this map, and I think that's where my disappointment lies the most, because comparing it to other Black Ops 4 or Black Ops 3 maps, I don't know if this map's going to have replay value from the map's perspective itself. Right now I have a lot of, you know, enjoyment in Cold War Zombies because of the Cold War's mechanics. There's a lot of stuff to upgrade, there's a lot of cool camos to go for, therefore it is still replayable, but I'm worried about this map specifically. If this map was under, like, let's say Black Ops 4's engine or BO3 or something, I just don't think it would be as replayable. I think we would get bored of this map relatively quickly, and we'll know exactly whether that's the case when the next map comes out. If we ever have the feeling of wanting to go back to this map, if I never do, then I'll know that the map was probably not the best map out there. Now, do I think it's a bad map? No, not by any means. If I was to currently rank this map in, you know, a top 50 ranking like what I did previously, like a couple weeks ago, if you guys want to check out that video, definitely go check that video out on my channel. If I was to rank it somewhere in there right now, I'd probably put it around like, I'd say like 17 or 18. It would be around there, so not quite in the middle, but not quite in the top either, but definitely not that low. I think Cold War's mechanics definitely help that a lot, but it's just not reaching into that top 10, which is where I wanted it to be. Hopefully some other maps within this game can get there. I just don't think it's there yet. If I was to give this map a rating out of 10, I think I would give it, I'd say like a solid just 8 out of 10. And that's a pretty solid score. Like, I'm not saying this map is bad. Again, I don't think it is. I just don't think it's where I wanted it to be. It almost feels a little underwhelming in some aspects. Like, they could have gone even further with it. And I think the 8 out of 10 rating is because of the mechanics from Cold War that are really helping the map out to keep it being more replayable. But if, of course, this game, like I said, wasn't under Cold War's mechanics, and I was just rating it on the map itself, and I just said, no, let's not even talk about the mechanics, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10, or maybe even a 6 out of 10. Maybe, yeah, it's around like a 6.5 out of 10 maybe. I don't think it would be nearly as high if it wasn't in Black Ops Cold War, which, like I said, I'm really enjoying the mechanics in this game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, I'm really excited to see what Cold War can do going forward with the other maps. Hopefully we get that Vietnam map that's been leaked for a long time. And I will see you guys on my next video. Peace out.